stories to start your morning. The lone bright spot for the stat sheet for the Falcons last night was Julio Jones. He caught 10 passes for 169 yards. Nick Wright, how impressed were you with Julio?
I mean, as impressed as I typically am when I watch this man play football. He is just, he has almost no holes in his game. He makes hard catches, easy catches, runs perfect routes. We saw him as a runner yesterday on a toss. Great numbers at is touchdowns. And that's obviously a pretty important number. That was the case last night as well.
Well, I know why he's struggling in the red zone is because defensive coordinators aren't going to let Julio Jones beat him in the red zone because he's a big receiver. So I think a lot of that has to be on Matt Ryan. But Julio Jones is a special player. And you know that he's motivated this year because he's openly probably trying to campaign for a contract. You saw they had that ugly dispute earlier. He's trying to get paid.
All right, moving on to the Colts now. Andrew Luck playing the Bengals this weekend, his first game since the 2016 season. Chris, what do you expect from Andrew Luck on Sunday?
I'm expecting Andrew Luck to be good because Andrew Luck has to be good if his team has any chance of being able to win. But I think we'll start to see the Andrew Luck that we know from when he was able to elevate his team to the divisional in the AFC Championship rounds and back-to-back seasons. So I think he'll be back to the Andrew Luck that we know.
I think he will eventually get back to the Andrew Luck that we know, but I don't think that's going to take 2 or 3 quarters. I don't think it's going to take 2 or 3 games. I think it might take 2 or 3 months. I think we've got to recognize how low his low point was emotionally and physically, and how much he has to do to get back to where he was after the longest he's gone without playing football in his life since he was 6 years old. So I'm hoping for health for Andrew Luck and flashes of the old Andrew Luck. I don't expect to see a full game of that yet.
Moving on to Minnesota now. Kirk Cousins will make his Minnesota Vikings debut, taking on Jimmy Garoppolo and the San Francisco 49ers this weekend. Nick, what do you expect to see from Cousins in this one?
And now, conversely to how I feel about Luck, I expect Cousins to have a monster game. I think San Francisco, outside of their defensive line, is a weak defense. I don't think they have one corner that can check Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, much less 2 of them. And this is what you brought Kirk Cousins there for. So when you're up against an inferior opponent, you don't just have to lean on them defensively. You can go beat them by outscoring them as well. I think Kirk Cousins has a big opening game as a Viking.
Yeah, I think they have the skill position players to be able to do it, and obviously the Vikings believe Cousins is an upgrade from Keenum, but the offensive line still has to be a concern. You're missing Nick Easton. He's out for the season. Pat Elflein is out for this game. Brett Jones is going to be filling in for him. You already talked about talented 49ers defensive front. A lot of draft capital.
A lot of draft capital.
If the 49ers are going to be competitive, they know they have to get after Kirk Cousins.
They have multiple top 5 picks on the defensive line.
They look like the power forwards in the NBA. Yeah. That's what they look like.
All right, finally, NFC North battle. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers facing Khalil Mack and the Chicago Bears defense at Lambeau on Sunday Night Football. Whew, get excited just thinking about it. Chris, how does Rodgers match up against this defense?
I think Aaron Rodgers matches up well against any defense because he's Aaron freaking Rodgers. He's the best quarterback from a skill perspective the NFL has ever seen. But in terms of what the Chicago Bears are defensively, they got a whole lot better when they made that Khalil Mack move. Now you couple him with Leonard Floyd, Danny Trevathan, and you look at the rookie Roquan Smith. You got a talented linebacker core defense that was a top 10 scoring defense a year ago. I think they have the ability to be a dominant defense now that they have the Khalil Mack. So if the offensive line for the Packers can keep Aaron Rodgers clean, I think this will be Aaron Rodgers having another big day.
If you look at Aaron Rodgers and his career against the Bears, the numbers are just silly. It's like 24 touchdowns, 2 picks. At home, I think it's 14 touchdowns to 1 pick, and that might not be his career, but in his last 5 years against this football team, I expect Rodgers to be great. I expect the Packers to be the best team in this division this year off the strength of Aaron Rodgers. But you got to be careful now because Chicago, we didn't pay a lot of attention to Chicago last year. They brought in Mike Glennon. They still had John Fox as their head coach. They then go to Mitch Trubisky. We don't really know what to expect from them. Quietly, they had a top 10 defense last year. Now they spend a top 10 pick on Roquan Smith, who you could argue was the most pro-ready player of any position in the draft, offensively or defensively. I know he had the long holdout. I don't think that'll hurt him. And then they also add I believe, the best pass rusher in the entire league in Khalil Mack. So this Bears team is going to present problems for every offense they face. Now, the question about the Bears this year is Mitch Trubisky any good? Like, that's what will determine what their ceiling actually is. But one of the reasons the Packers, were bummed that they didn't get Khalil Mack when they were in the market for him is not just that they didn't get him.
Is that someone
where he went? Now you got to play him 2 games a year. Like, send him to the Jets. We'll play him once every 4 years. I think this is a big Jimmy Graham game. By the way, I think that this is to see, we heard in the offseason how Rodgers couldn't get on the same page and was frustrated with some of his young receivers. We also saw in the preseason him already having a connection, particularly in the red zone, with Jimmy Graham. I want to see how that connection looks this weekend.
How does it work? Khalil Mack is in. He hasn't been there, obviously, from the beginning. But is he he's got the game plan down, he's going to play it all out, he's going to feel comfortable with limited practices with this team?
Well, they're going to put him in certain situations and packages that he's comfortable with and that he understands. Right now, it's a lot to try to absorb Vic Fangio's playbook in a week and a half. So I think it's a situation where you'll see him as a pass rusher, long downs and distances, 2nd and long, 3rd and long, and in certain situations with the base defense. But Khalil Mack, it's all about getting to the quarterback. They're not going to ask him to drop in coverage. That's not why they gave him $141 million. They gave him that money to go hunt number 12 and all the other quarterbacks in that division. So it's more about him being able to get after the quarterback because, if you're the Bears defense, the only way that you have to stop or slow down the Packers offense is to knock down Aaron Rodgers.
I would argue that if you were to tell me we're going to trade for a player a week before a game, because they got him, Saturday morning, right? And so, 8 days before we play, any position, offense or defense, 8 days before we play, we got a player. What's the position where he's most likely to have an impact? I'd say pass rusher. Because you can simply say, listen, it's almost, or maybe shutdown corner if it's a real shutdown corner, and it's just going to be.
You can run cat coverage.
Right,
you cover that cat right there.
The old Deion Sanders, I don't even go to the huddle. I'm just standing over here. Like, Khalil Mack can almost do his version of that. Now, over the course of the season, they will ask him to do a lot more. They'll run stunts. They'll run different things. They might occasionally actually drop him into coverage just to throw off what the quarterback is seeing. But what his job's going to be on Sunday is every time he's on the field, go attack the quarterback. Just attack and go forward. That's what Chris was saying with sit and sick him. Like, that's what Khalil Mack will be asked to do. So I don't think the lack of practice time will hurt his ability to get after Aaron Rodgers.
All right, let's move on now to the Patriots and the Texans. The older